Stirring your mind with chopsticks using the vortex method, the only true way to optimize how you think at the molecular level. Good morning. Welcome to the Daybreak Show. I am the Sultan. We'll get started. But first, no coffee. I'm getting ready to go to the lab, and they're going to draw some blood. Just routine blood work. So no coffee until after I do the blood work. It's fasting blood work, so that means no food or drink after midnight. But let's get started here. As an older guy in my 60s, I can say I wish I had the book The Menu when I was younger. It's by Clarey. Reading and internalizing this book at 18 years old probably would have changed the course of my life. With most men, it's not tragedy, bankruptcy, accidents, and jobs that create the pain points in our lives. It's relationships, breakups, divorce, complicating one's life with unrealistic expectations of the opposite sex. This shows the reader that the void one feels doesn't necessarily need to be filled by another person. No one single woman can fulfill all of your needs and desires. You know why? Because that's a lot of work for somebody. And that's a lot of expectations to be magically met. So read the book, The Menu. Underline, highlight, take notes in the columns. Reflect on your notations the next time you pick it up and before you read the next chapter. Process each chapter before ingesting the next one. You will feel like crap for the past mistakes you've made, but that will eventually subside when you realize you're not alone in the journey. You eventually will feel optimistic and have more faith in yourself. The concept of hope versus action was kind of like one of those moments for me. Keep action alive, not hope. Action gives you a reason to wake up and crush it today. Hope without action is like wanting big, strong arms but never lifting weights. That easy curl bar is not going to lift itself, and you're not going to magically wake up with biceps. It's not going to happen. That being said, get yourself a 4-color pen. I have several of them. You've seen them. Color code all your notes when you are reading a book. If you're underlining, if you're taking notes in the columns, color code your notes. Green is for money issues. Red is for red flags and warnings. Blue is for emotional issues. See what I did there? Blue. And black is for hardcore truths. Don't forget to add 1 to 4 stars to emphasize the statements that made you stop and think. That's how you get the best out of the book called The Menu. Every parent needs to buy this for their sons. Just order it, read 1 chapter a day. And here's my thoughts. Gather a few friends and have a real book study group, not virtual, not Zoom calls. And this is how you're best going to enjoy the book, The Menu. You read a little bit, teach a little bit, and then discuss in the group, even if that group is just 3 people. The Menu by Clarey. What it does, it teaches you not to be so dependent on wanting a relationship and lose the desire to always want to be coupled. But I'm lonely. I get that. But not unlike anything else, I can't tell you how many people I've coached and counseled over the years that wanted to be married, then got married, and then within a couple years, it wasn't that big of a deal. It was more of a big deal before you got married. After you got married, you started talking like everyone else. So what do you do then? You learn to live without the desire for the opposite sex. Now, if you're married, that's a different story. If you have a girlfriend, that's a different story. But there's something to be said about operating independently and symbiotically, working as a team together versus being just roommates that have sex, or being codependent with the other person, which is not a good thing. For some of the guys out there, don't be frustrated at this new wave of red-pilled women. Hint, there's no such thing as a red pill woman. But rather, encourage your fellow brothers to stop simping Remember, attention is a woman's currency. You pay me with money, you pay a woman with attention. Every time you comment, "You're so beautiful. You're beautiful. You look great today. Nice eyes. Your hair looks great." Every time you do that, you're putting $5 in her G-string. You're making the monkey dance every time you do that. Women should be teaching women, men should be teaching men. You go to any like woman's channel that's red-pilled or whatever you want to call it, and 95% of the comments are from men that are simping and giving compliments. Women can't teach men how to be men. So why are you watching these? For entertainment? Okay, that's good, because most of it is nothing but entertainment. But the reality is this: you're going to learn masculinity, how to be a man, from a man, not from a woman. And if you are a single mother out there raising sons, the best thing you can do for your boys or even your grandsons is show them links, send them links to men teaching masculinity, men teaching about manhood, not women teaching about manhood. The reality is, if you are a divorced mom, you do have some bias against men, especially if you divorced your husband, especially if you divorced your husband. You are unconsciously teaching that to your son without even realizing it. Contempt for men. Well, this week is 7 years of being on YouTube. I started this channel February of 2016. A lot of changes, right? Started out talking about beards and haircuts and men's grooming and skincare and that kind of stuff, which is pretty much neglected by most men, and teaching men how to actually care for themselves and look decent without being arrogant, conceited, and thinking the world revolves around them, which it doesn't. But your world is you. Take care of you. Be a good steward of you. That's what this channel is all about. And then we kind of, I don't want to say morphed, but we started getting more into men's philosophy with pipe smoking, which just makes every man a philosopher. And then we went strictly into kind of like life wisdom kind of stuff on this channel, which is where I've had most of my success. And it's been fun. It's been a good 7 years. It hasn't been the roller coaster ride that many others have experienced. So I'm pretty happy with the results of what's been happening. And it's been nice, slow, organic growth, just growing a little bit every week, every week, every week. As I like to say, I am the IV drip of motivation versus like the fire hose. You tune into this channel for like little drops of wisdom. And it's not wisdom coming from the Almighty sitting at his kitchen table because he's been so successful, because much of my teaching is the result of mistakes that I've made and learned from. So what I'm not doing is saying, I'm such a great example for how you should live. I'm probably a better example of how you can recover from tailspins and bad decision making. And I will continue this channel as long as people appreciate it. I did change the name from my name, George Bruno, to Listen My Son, because it's kind of a take on Proverbs, listen my son. And being that I have 2 sons, I think that much of my life teaching about just life, jobs, women, money, etc., recovering from negativity and different things, even negative situations that you've created for yourself. A lot of that wisdom is here. There's over 2,000 videos on this channel that I think you would benefit from. This weekend is the 2-year anniversary of the death of my buddy Craig. 2 years ago. Actually, it's tomorrow. 2 years ago, he took his life, put a gun to his chest, pulled the trigger. Now, Craig was my best friend. You've seen a lot of pictures of me and him on various social media sites. He was a good buddy. We met in college, in 1981, and his dorm room was next to mine, and I'd wander over there. We'd talk about music. I remember one time I heard Rush playing. We both were big fans of the band Rush, and he was playing Rush, and I'm like, "Oh, Rush fan, huh?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, you like him too?" I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." So it was interesting. It was kind of like the C.S. Lewis thing, where C.S. Lewis says, "True friendship takes place when one person says to another, 'Wow, you too?'" And that's how Craig and I were. We enjoyed the same kind of music and philosophy and had a very similar sense of humor. So we met when we were young men, like 20 years old, and knew each other since then, stayed in touch. I think as he got older, he might have gotten discouraged and a little bit lazy with himself. He put on a lot of weight. Women weren't kicking down his door in the comparison to me, where I had like an insane social life as far as going to parties and events and always having a girlfriend or several girlfriends. And whenever he and I would get together, I always had the women all the time, and he was, alone, always going solo. And I'm sure that just kind of grated on him. Not in a negative way where he despised me, but in a way where he probably felt like he wanted that. And I know he dated people, and I know he got friend zoned a lot. And I don't like that. I don't like that. And ladies, if you're watching, stop friend zoning guys. You be straight with them right from the get. If a guy is being really nice to you over a period of time, the very minute you feel that you don't want to get closer to him or be intimate with him, you gotta let him know. You gotta signal somehow. All right. A lot of guys do this thing where they will kind of try to friend their way into a woman's heart, and that just doesn't work. And I just think rejection after rejection after rejection after rejection, just kind of, there was like layers of rejection. And I don't know specifically what pushed him over the edge to want to take his life. It was a complete shock to me. Complete shock. There are people who I know that if they take their life, I would say, "Oh, I knew that was coming." But I did not expect it with my friend Craig. I did not expect it. So for the 2 years now, since he's been gone, and I don't even know if there's a grave. I know he was cremated. I went to his funeral, and I don't know if his ashes were scattered or he's buried somewhere. I have no idea, but I got to find that out. But 2 years looking back on it, it's a very significant event in my life, and I did not hold any of that back for you. Even, I think the day or day after it happened, I shared something with you, my complete shock. And the stages that I went through were just absolute grief. And someone said to me, "You're eventually going to stop grieving and start getting angry." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And here I am, a guy that was in the mental health field. I know psychology very well. I know how the mind works. And I was perplexed by that statement. Because after the grief kind of subsided, I started getting angry at him. And I was talking to him while I was driving. And I would say, "Craig, why did you have to do that?" And I got so pissed off to the point where I was angry for almost a year that he took his life. Angry. And I'm thinking, what can be so bad where you put a gun to your damn chest? There's Daddy's good boy. Good boy. Take care of your critters. And he and I would get together and go to a couple different bars and watch bands. And we loved music, live music. He liked football. I didn't like football. So whenever there was a game on, he was either watching a game at home or he'd go to a sports bar and watch a game. And I could care less about professional sports, but he was like a big fan of the Philadelphia teams. And, and I knew at that point, I shouldn't say at that point. That was an area that we did not share, but we did share a love of live music. We both loved Led Zeppelin, both loved Rush, and I enjoyed working out, taking long walks, that kind of stuff. But Craig was the kind of guy, like, if you asked him to go on a walk, he would think instantly, say, "Oh, that's gay," like a guy asking another guy to go on a walk. My thing was this: after he put on some weight, I wanted to get him out walking. I enjoy walking. I enjoy a good 5 mile walk at a park. Oh, it's fantastic. But he was one of those guys that was his response. Like if you went to the movies with him, he'd sit 2 seats down because he didn't want anyone to think anything, like that kind of stuff. You know how guys are. He wasn't into working out. I would have invited him to my gym. I remember many, many times. Come on, let's go work out. Nah, the game is on or something like that. I'm like, okay, whatever. And as I was getting more into shape, he was getting more and more out of shape. Now, if it had to do with a live band and good pub food, he was there. He met all my friends, like that I knew. Like he lived in Florida for over 20 years. When he moved back to Pennsylvania, I introduced him to a lot of friends and helped him with his social life, that kind of thing. Back when I was hanging out with a lot of women, I would always bring a woman along with me wherever, and the ladies liked him. But one of the things that I saw was that he was like a buddy to women, and you can't be a buddy to women. As soon as a woman makes up a nickname for you, like I remember one woman saying, I said, we're gonna go to this bar tonight, and this band is playing there, and why don't you join us? She, oh, cool, that sounds like fun. And she would say, is the Craigster gonna be with us? Make sure you call the Craigster. And that always bothered me. When a woman kind of nicknames you, that just kind of means that you're just like that chubby teddy bear of a guy, and that they never take you seriously. And Craig always had a soft edge to him, and he never displayed any dangerous behavior. And I say that in a positive way, the dangerous. He wasn't threatening in any way. He was kind of soft. He didn't work out. He didn't like motorcycles. Not that those are the only things defining a man. But he didn't do a lot of those things. I know a lot of it stemmed from his weight. I know that. I know he wasn't happy with it. And he did a lot of self-deprecating as well. A lot of his jokes, I think, were a deflection. This is just my opinion. Were a deflection from his own feelings about himself. He had one of the best senses of humor I've ever known. I mean, he and I laughed all the time. We just loved stand-up comedians and interesting, peculiar, funny ways of looking at life and situations. And when I got the call that he died, my first thought was, I didn't know he was sick. Because the first thing when a person who is obese passes away, the first thing you think of is disease or a heart attack. You don't think suicide. You just don't think that. And it freaked me out. It freaked me out because I never knew anyone who took their life. And he was not a distant friend. He was my best friend. He was the guy that I did everything with. Every week we went out, did something. Every week. Did band, like bar trivia, that kind of stuff. I introduced him to a couple biker bars that I go to and just had a great time. So when he deleted himself, it set me off thinking about what were the signs? Was there anything that would lead me to believe that he would do that? Only now in retrospect, I just see, like I said a few minutes ago, just layer after layer after layer of rejection. He gave a shit too much. And I know he was lonely as hell, and I know he felt that rejection. This is why a man needs to develop a sense of indifference and outcome independence, which means that you don't really give a shit if someone is into you or not. He just cared too much, and he experienced rejection a little too much. He'd meet women on these swiping dating sites and have one or two dates, and then the next thing I knew, they were doing stuff as friends, which basically meant that she had the talk with him and said she's not attracted to him, but we can be friends, all while she's still dating and looking for the perfect Chad. And I know that stuff grated on him, and I know there's a lot of you guys out there that are feeling that way. I know that. I know you're feeling that way. There's one person right now who's watching this who is thinking, you just described me. I know you're thinking that. I know that. Indifference and outcome independence is going to save your life. Never look to other people, men, never look to other people or a woman for approval. And when you distance yourself, when you get a little bit indifferent and practice outcome independence, you end up with this attitude, like you've heard me say this before, some will, some won't, so what? Next. And I think what happened was every time he got rejected, it was just like another stomach punch. And then he'd recover from it, come back again, get punched again, recover from it. And I just think he took too many hits over the years, too many hits to his heart. That's what I think. And it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad. It's not like I can even go to the places that he and I used to go to, like the bars, because he and I were like, every time we'd go somewhere, it would be at the point where the waitress would just knew exactly what we wanted to drink. And she almost knew exactly what we were going to order on the menu as well. And there were times where I would go by myself if he was like watching a game or something. And everybody would say, hey, where's your buddy? Where's Craig at? And that was kind of cool. You know, where's your buddy? Oh, he's watching the game. Or whatever. But I haven't had the courage to go to those places yet. Now it's been 2 years. Because I know the first thing people are going to say is, hey, where's your buddy? And I don't want to have to tell the story that he killed himself. I mean, I've told it here several times. But I've pictured in my head, what am I going to say when people ask me, hey, where's your buddy? Because I don't want the conversation to be about that. But I do want to raise consciousness about suicide and ending your life. No matter who you are, there's nothing worth taking your life for. I've said this now for about 40 years. Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And all problems are temporary. They're all temporary. And I'll just beat this drum forever. When you're going through shit, you feel like you're the only one in the world going through it, and you feel like it will never end. And both of those are false. They're just lies. Problems do end. You will keep experiencing problems if you just keep attacking them the same way. But problems do end. Just hunker down, let the clouds pass, just like a storm. So what did the death of my buddy do for me? What is the result? I think increased indifference and increased outcome independence. I'm almost at the point where I'm thinking, so what about rejection? Who cares? Rejected by who? Rejected by what? What's the difference? I have a life. I don't evaluate my life by what other people think of me. I don't evaluate my life, or I don't measure my happiness by other people's responses to me, especially women. I just don't. And that's something every man has to come to grips with. All that being said, if you know someone who's struggling with things like this, reach out to them. Reach out. Get them out walking. Get them to the gym. Just get off the phone, stop texting, and do stuff in real life to get them out. Help people, help another man change the channel in his head. Once a man gets on a track of darkness, depression, discouragement, it's hard to get him off, especially if he's been on that track for a long time. Is it your responsibility to save someone's life? No, it's not. But that's what a friend does. They reach out to friends who might be hurting. One of the only things that helps me kind of get through this and cope with the death of my buddy was that I know I tried. I know I tried. And I still feel a little bit of guilt as a result of it. But I know I tried. As a Christian man, how do I deal with it? I still have questions. I ask God all the time, like, why? Why? I don't understand why this happened. And the reality is this, is that I have to become comfortable with uncertainty. Not everything is going to have an answer. Not everything is going to be wrapped up in a nice little package with a nice little bow. It's not going to happen. There are going to be mysteries and questions in life, and you have to be comfortable with that. If you ever feel bad, or if there's a track, if there's a rut that you're in that's dark and discouraging and disappointing, do something to change the channel. Change what you're looking at. Change what you're thinking. One of the best ways to do that is to get yourself into the gym. If you're a man, get yourself into the gym. You can afford it now. Everybody can afford it. Gyms are so cheap. And that's the first area that you can start to see change in your life. It's one of the quickest ways to start to improve yourself. And that improvement spills over other areas of your life. You will be surprised. And thanks for watching today. I hope that this spoke to somebody. And if it speaks to one person, I'm perfectly happy with that. And with that, finish your coffee and I'll see you on the next Daybreak Show, your home of sanity, clarity, reason, and indifference.